This simple exercise is giving back glute strength after 50. If you spend hours sitting every day and have never trained your glutes in your life, your body is paying a price you do not even know exists. Culturally, men have always treated glute training as something for women, and modern life has been completing the damage. Hours in a chair progressively deactivate the gluteus maximus, creating what physical therapy calls a dormant glute, a muscle that has lost the ability to contract efficiently. The consequences are serious: instability while walking, chronic hip pain, knees that collapse inward, and a spine without support. A study from the University of Delaware found that glute weakness is present in more than 80% of patients with chronic lower back pain. It is worth remembering that the gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body, and having it functioning well directly impacts your metabolism, your posture, and the quality of every step you take. That is why today you will see the 6 best movements to reverse this problem and avoid the serious consequences of having the largest muscle in your body weakened. Before we begin, please tell us through the comments your name and the city from which you are watching our content. We would love to know. Exercise number 1, frog pump. Few exercises can isolate the gluteus maximus as efficiently as the frog pump, and the reason lies directly in the position of the feet. When you bring the soles together and let the knees fall naturally to the sides, the hamstring muscles are placed at a mechanically unfavorable angle and are practically taken out of the equation. This forces the gluteus maximus to take on almost all the work on its own, without sharing the effort with any supporting muscle. For those who come to a workout reporting that they cannot feel their glutes working during conventional exercises, this may be exactly the missing piece. A study published in the International Journal of Sports Physical Therapy in 2020 compared the electromyographic activation of different bridge variations and concluded that the position of external hip rotation, exactly the one used in the frog pump, produced significantly greater activation of the gluteus maximus compared to the conventional bridge with parallel feet. From a functional standpoint for those over 50, this superior recruitment without any external load makes the exercise an excellent entry point for reconnecting the nervous system to the dormant glute after years of sedentary living and long hours in a chair. To perform it, lie on your back on a firm surface. Bring the soles of your feet together and let your knees fall to the sides, forming a diamond shape with your legs. From there, squeeze the glutes firmly and raise the hips in a controlled manner, holding for 1 to 2 seconds at the top before lowering slowly. The movement does not need to be large. What defines the result is the quality of the contraction at the top, not the height the hips reach. A tip that changes results in practice. Before starting the movement, actively press the knees outward as if trying to push the floor away with them. This simple adjustment increases glute recruitment even before the hips begin to rise. The main errors to avoid are performing the movement quickly and without a pause at the top, which transfers much of the effort to the lower back, and raising the hips too high in an attempt to increase range of motion, which results in spinal hyperextension. The movement should be moderate, conscious, and entirely guided by the sensation of contraction in the glute. Perform 3 sets of 20 to 25 repetitions with a 60-second rest between sets. The main contraindication is active pain in the sacroiliac joint or trochanteric bursitis, as the forced external rotation of the hips may irritate those structures. Exercise number 2, step up. There is something very intelligent about the step up that goes beyond the training itself. It translates directly to real life. Every time you climb a bus step, a higher curb, or a staircase, you are performing exactly this movement pattern. This means that strengthening this gesture is not just training a muscle, it is directly preserving your independence and safety in daily life. The central benefit of the exercise lies in forcing a single leg to generate force against gravity without help from the other, activating the stabilizers of the hip and knee in a way that flat walking simply cannot replicate. In addition, the mechanical impact the movement produces on the femoral neck stimulates bone density in that region, which is precisely where fractures from falls are most common in people over 50. Regular practitioners of this exercise can, over a few months, visibly improve their confidence when descending stairs and their stability when stepping on uneven surfaces. To perform it, place one entire foot on a stable, elevated surface, such as the first step of a staircase, a firm bench, or a sturdy box, and press through the heel to step up, bringing the other foot alongside before descending with control. The height of the platform does not need to be large, especially at the beginning. What matters is the quality of the movement in each repetition. A tip that makes a difference: keep the torso slightly leaned forward when stepping up, as this places the hip in a better position to activate the glute instead of delegating the work to the quadriceps. You will know you are doing it correctly when you clearly feel the glute of the leg on the platform working, not just the front of the thigh. The main errors to avoid are using the lower leg to push off, which completely defeats the purpose of the exercise, and descending quickly, wasting the eccentric phase of the movement. This phase is equally responsible for muscular muscular strengthening and for protecting the knee joint. Perform 3 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions per leg, always starting with the weaker side. The most relevant contraindication is acute knee pain or a recent hip replacement without medical clearance for unilateral exercises. Exercise number 3, Sumo squat. What differentiates the Sumo squat from the conventional squat is not just the wide foot position. It is what that position causes in terms of muscle recruitment. With the feet placed wider than shoulder width and the toes pointing outward between 30 and 45 degrees, the exercise intensely recruits the gluteus maximus, the gluteus medius, and the inner thigh adductors simultaneously. This means you are training the musculature responsible for hip stability, pelvic leveling, and the propulsive force of your gait with a single movement. For those over 50, there is yet another point in its favor. The wider stance requires less ankle flexion, making the Sumo squat more accessible for those with limited mobility in that joint, and this is extremely common with advancing age and years of sedentary living. A study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research in 2015 demonstrated that squatting with a wider stance and external foot rotation increased gluteus maximus activation by up to 35% compared to a narrow stance squat, making it a biomechanically superior choice for anyone wanting to prioritize that musculature. To perform it, position your feet at the correct width, hold the back of a chair for support if needed initially, and lower your hips toward the floor while keeping the torso upright and the knees always aligned with the direction of your toes. A mental cue that greatly improves alignment. Imagine you are trying to push the floor apart with your feet as you rise. This internal focus improves glute recruitment and reduces the knees collapsing inward. The main errors to avoid are the knees collapsing inward, especially during the upward phase, which dangerously overloads the knee ligaments, and excessive forward lean of the torso, which transfers the load to the lower back. Perform 3 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions. To progress without needing a gym, hold a full water bottle or a weighted backpack in front of your body, gradually increasing the load as execution improves. Contraindications include active knee pain, meniscus injuries without medical clearance, and recent hip replacement. Before we continue, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Having constant access to science-based information is what will help you progress with long-term health in the world of exercise. Exercise number 4, elevated feet glute bridge. Before starting, it is worth understanding what differentiates this exercise from the frog pump we saw in the first item, because the difference is not just the foot position. They are completely distinct recruitment mechanisms. While the frog pump isolates the glute by neutralizing the hamstrings through external rotation, the elevated feet bridge expands the total range of motion by allowing the hips to drop below the floor line. This places the glute in greater stretch before contracting, recruiting more fibers across a larger arc of movement. The hamstrings also participate more actively here, making this a strength exercise through full range of motion rather than pure isolation. Think of it as the natural progression of the conventional glute bridge, that classic movement performed with the hips on the floor that is considered one of the most therapeutic for the aging spine, precisely because it teaches the nervous system to use the hip as the engine of movement, sparing the vertebrae. This elevated version is the logical next step. Same safe pattern, greater range, greater challenge. To perform it, rest your heels on a firm, elevated surface, such as the seat of a sturdy chair or the first step of a staircase, with your legs extended or slightly bent, and raise your hips by squeezing the glutes firmly. At the top, the body should form a diagonal line from head to heels. Keep the abdomen lightly contracted throughout the movement to protect the lower back and ensure pelvic stability. The main errors to avoid are letting the knees fall inward or outward during the movement, which signals a loss of pelvic stability, and skipping the pause at the top, wasting the peak contraction where the glute is maximally recruited. Perform 3 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions, with a 2-second pause at the highest point of each repetition. Contraindications include hip impingement syndrome, acute pain in the hamstrings, and severe lumbar instability. Exercise number 5, clamshell. It is natural to underestimate an exercise that seems as simple as lying on your side and opening one knee. But a study published in the Journal of Orthopedic and Sports Physical Therapy in 2011 measured the electromyographic activation of 11 different exercises for the gluteus medius and concluded that the clamshell ranked among the most efficient for specifically isolating that muscle, even outperforming standing variations that visually appear far more demanding. And And why does this matter so much for those over 50? Because the gluteus medius is primarily responsible for keeping the pelvis level during walking. When it is weak, the hip drops slightly to one side with each step, creating an unstable gait pattern that exponentially increases the risk of lateral falls. Have you noticed elderly people who sway heavily from side to side when they walk? In a large proportion of cases, the origin of that pattern is exactly a weak gluteus medius. Strengthening this muscle is not a detail, it is a matter of personal safety. To perform it, lie on your side with your hips stacked one on top of the other, knees bent at approximately 45 degrees and feet together. From there, open the top knee like a clamshell opening, keeping the feet together and without letting the hip roll backward. The movement should be slow, controlled, and fully conscious. When the exercise without resistance becomes easy and you can complete the sets without feeling fatigue in the muscle, position a resistance band just above the knees to progressively increase the intensity. The main errors to avoid are the hip rolling backward during the opening, which is the clearest sign that the muscle has already fatigued and the body is compensating with other muscle groups, and performing the movement quickly, losing control and quality of contraction. When you notice the hip rolling, stop immediately, rest, and restart the set from the beginning. Perform 3 sets of 15 repetitions per side with a 1-second pause at the point of maximum opening. The main contraindication is active trochanteric bursitis, as repeated external rotation may irritate the lateral bursa of the hip. Exercise number 6, donkey kick. The donkey kick is a hip extension exercise performed on all fours that delivers intense gluteus maximus activation with very low joint risk. This combination makes it especially valuable for those who are still building strength and confidence in standing movements, whether due to balance limitations or initially low conditioning. The primary benefit lies in working the glute in its most fundamental function, hip extension, which is exactly the movement that drives each step taken, and that tends to deteriorate with age and sedentary living. This deterioration results in the shortened stride so characteristic of older individuals, that gait with small shuffling steps that everyone recognizes. Training this pattern is not just a matter of aesthetics, it is about recovering the locomotive efficiency of your own body. I have observed that regular practitioners of this exercise can, within a few weeks, feel a real difference in the firmness of each step and in the strength needed to climb ramps. To perform it, position yourself on all fours with your wrists below your shoulders and your knees below your hips. Contract the abdomen, stabilize the pelvis, and raise one leg back and upward with the knee bent at 90 degrees, as if you were trying to press the sole of your foot against the ceiling. The movement must come exclusively from the hip, without any involvement of the lower back. To progressively increase the intensity, use an ankle weight or position a resistance band around the ankle. The main errors to avoid are arching the spine to lift the leg higher, which transfers all tension to the lower back and completely negates the glute work, and letting the knee open to the side during the lift, which indicates unwanted hip rotation and complete loss of alignment. If you cannot raise the leg without arching the spine, reduce the range of motion and work within the limit that allows you to maintain control. Perform 3 sets of 15 repetitions per side with a 1-second pause at the highest point. The main contraindication is carpal tunnel syndrome or wrist pain. In those cases, perform the exercise supported on the forearms instead of the hands, which better distributes the pressure and allows the movement to be performed safely. These 6 exercises form a solid foundation for anyone over 50 who wants to recover glute strength. But there is still a 7th movement that rounds out the work with a very specific function that the previous ones do not fulfill in the same way. Bonus exercise, seated hip abduction with resistance band. This exercise closes the list with a function that none of the previous ones fulfills with such specificity, strengthening the lateral hip stabilizers, the gluteus medius and the gluteus minimus, in a completely safe position without any balance demands or complex coordination. This makes it particularly valuable for people over 50 who are in the early stages of conditioning, or who have a history of falls and feel insecure. Performing standing exercises. Strength in the hip abductors is the primary predictor of fall recovery. It is this musculature that fires reflexively to open the leg and rebalance the body at the exact moment a stumble occurs. If it is weak, that reflex is simply not fast enough or strong enough to prevent the fall. Therefore, training the abductors in a seated position is not making things too easy. It is building the neuromuscular foundation that will make standing exercises safer and more efficient over time. It is worth noting that this exercise is also excellent for those who live with knee pain, as it strengthens the muscles responsible for laterally aligning the knee during gait, reducing stress on the joint. To perform it, sit in a firm chair with your feet flat on the floor, position a resistance band just above the knees, keep the torso upright, and press the knees outward against the resistance of the band, sustaining the contraction for 2 seconds before returning with control. The chair must be firm enough not to move during the movement. The main errors to avoid are tilting the torso torso to the side during the opening, which indicates that the lateral trunk muscles are compensating for a lack of strength in the abductors, and using a band that is too strong before the neuromuscular activation is established. Always start with light resistance and progress as control improves. Perform 3 sets of 15 to 20 repetitions, or alternatively, 3 sets with an isometric hold of 20 to 30 seconds in the open position. Contraindications include acute sacroiliac joint pain or active trochanteric bursitis, as repeated abduction can be irritating under those conditions. If you enjoyed this and also want to discover another exercise widely practiced in communities across Asia to make up for years of neglect toward the body, we have a video appearing on screen right now showing each of them in detail. Be sure to check it out. Thank you for watching all the way through, and God bless you, my friend.